Got a lot of bits. Let's get going so we can finish up and put all the personality into our professor. All right, so I have just gotten to the end of the assembly video when I realized, and I can't believe this, I forgot to knit the little topper on his hat. So I was so excited to be done the stuffing video that I just moved right on and I didn't actually knit the little thing on top. So I'm gonna knit that separately. It's just a little bit of I-cord that you can either knit right onto the professor or you can do later and attach. And I'm gonna have to do that. So you'll come back and we'll start this video again, but I just wanted to like come in at the beginning of this video and say, yeah, at no point in this video is he going to have his little hat topper until the end, and then you'll come back and you'll see him like this, but now with a hat topper, because that's what he's supposed to have. Our very first thing is the beard. There are two sort of sides to this. One where the first curl will sort of be pearly and bumpy, and one where that first side will be the knitted side. And depending on what you like, you can put either one forward. In terms of figuring out what you like, this piece that you may have been guessing is the nose. So you can just sort of try it on and see if it bothers you one way or another. You may think, oh, well, this way, it doesn't really matter because the nose is covering most of it, and you would be correct. So just pick a side. We're going to be centering the beard up against this stitch marker that we put in that's at the front of our work. The stitch marker will be at the tallest part of our short row shaping, so that will be the center of the face. Quick tip about threading needles. If you fold it over so that the plies aren't trying to split apart, so fold it over, pinch it between your thumb and your finger, place the needle eye right next to that and open the pinch, and it will force the bent bit of your yarn through the needle, and you can just pull it through really nice and easily. All right, so I'm going to take off my stitch marker here. I like to turn my gnomes upside down usually when I'm sewing on beards, just so that I can hold them with my left hand while I sew with my right. So we're just going to sew along. Now we don't want to go right up into the actual color change here with the transition to the gills. We need to leave a little bit of space for the nose. So just go right up nice and high. But not necessarily if your gills are starting, if your body is starting to stretch out to the gills, you don't necessarily want to go right up to the gills. So this is one of those things where have a look. Position is personality. So before you sew things on, have a look what you think it will look like. Maybe put the nose on, try things out, experiment a little bit before you sew things on and make it forever and ever. The nose will, or the sewing what we do here will be visible in a lot of ways, unlike other gnomes where the brim drapes down over the beard, so we do need to be nice and tidy. But don't worry, because we have all these little bumpy bits that we can sew things and use to hide our stitches. So I'm just going to go under a stitch here to the side, so I'm going under both legs of the stitch, and then I'm going through the side of the beard. And I'm going to go a couple times there, just to get the beard edge sort of tucked over. By making sure to anchor the side to where we want, we kind of tidy up that side of the beard. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the needle over here, and I'm just going to sew up and down like a cartoon character. This is called running stitch, going up and down through the beard and body, back up, and I'm just going to zigzag my way over to the other side. I'm assuming that for most of you, this will be a decorative piece and not a toy for a child. If this is a toy for a child, please make sure to sew this on quite firmly. Every piece needs to be attached firmly because kids tend to carry their stuffies by every possible appendage. So don't be just thinking placement, also be thinking stability and security. So now I'm going to go into the corner of my fabric, corner of my beard, and just pull those into place. One thing you can do with the professor, since his face is sort of more public than usual, is maybe don't get rid of the beard attachment thread quite yet, because you can always pull it out and change things if you want to. So this is where my nose is going to go, and I'm feeling like the beard's actually in a really good place. I left just enough room for my nose to sort of center on the beard, but still have room to fit under the gills there. So that's looking really good for me. I'm going to bring each end through the center of the beard individually so that it comes through in a slightly different place. Let's just make sure I'm doing this right. So through the center, bring this through. Don't go through exactly the same spot. Come through. And then what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to tie a knot. Now I want my beard stitches or my nose stitches to be oriented the same as the stockinette on the rest of the body. So I don't like my noses to go side to side with the stockinette, but I like them to go up and down. So I'm just making sure that it's like that before I tie a knot. It's still going to pivot around, but it's always best to start with the position you mean to have going forward. So I'm just going to tie a knot, making sure not to grab my beard spirals. And then one of those, I'm just going to make those ends disappear. I could either go through the body, or in this case, it's a nice big nose, so I'm just going to go through the nose itself. So there we go. And disappears inside the nose. And now we've got just one nose end, and I'm going to secure the nose. I'm going to do it in 3 places. We've already sort of secured the middle, but I want to go through the lower third, the middle, and then the upper third, and hit it at those 3 places, and that will stabilize it and hopefully keep it from twisting around, but also keep it from being too floppy and just not looking great. So I'm going to go about here, and I'm going to go through a little bit of the beard, that sort of central spoke of the beard. And I'm going to go down, and I'm going to go right through the body, and I'm going to come up. And I've gone sort of through one part of the beard, the body, and then through the next layer, the next spoke of the beard, spike, lock of the beard, and just given it just a little bit of sideways support there. Go back through my nose. That feels pretty good. So now I'm going to go and just move my yarn through to the other side where I can see it here from the top. Always making sure that I'm not imprisoning any of these little ringlets. All right. So now I'm going to roll it down, and I'm going to go through the top of the beard, and I'm just going to do the middle. Secure that. And now I want to do the top of the nose. I'm going to go here through the body, much higher up to the gills. And now I'm going to go through the top bit of the nose there. Not the top of the nose, but the upper third of the nose, I should say. And let's pull that and see what we think. It's not bad at all. Again, because this is a decorative gnome, I'm not worried. It won't be getting a lot of tweaking, so I don't need to worry about attaching it at the sides. I think we've got enough stability for this to sit on a shelf and look handsome. So I'm going to be calling that done. So I'm just going to push that through into the body. Come out. There we are. Okay, I found that with my other fingertips. Then I'll do the same thing with the beard end. If this is a toy, you're going to be wanting to tie knots. And there's a video on dealing with ends that will talk about tying knots more specifically. This one having a more visible beard edges and such will make it a little trickier. So what you might want to do if you want to tie knots is make sure you get the thread down and to the bottom of the beard and do all of your knotting sort of underneath here in this area here. But I'm just going to, again, like I said, I'm just going to go through off to the other side. Pull taut and snip. Normally with arms, we'd be placing them right up side by side, but this is a narrow beard and things are a little more visible. So I'm going to advise that we put one stitch width between the arms and the beard. So just have one open V stitch there. And you do have a choice to make because we have left an end on one of the arms, and that end is going to be used to attach the basket. So let's talk about the basket. So these two pieces together are going to form the professor's basket. I've shaped it so that it's sort of a longer side, and then where we did the decreases so close to each other, that's the shorter side. And what we're going to do is we're going to use our little handle bit here. We'll attach it inside here and inside there, and that's going to go up and against him. So we'll attach midway along the center of the long side. So I'm going to use both of these at once. If you'd like, you can just thread one of them up and in to your handle and make it disappear and use just one end. It's your choice what you're going to do. All right. So I want to sew it so that we're basically just covering the top of the basket and the edge of the handle so that this end is not visible from the outside. So we want to keep it nice and high. So I'm going to use this stitch right here. Let's pull that on. Yeah, that's looking about right. So now let's flip this over to this side. And I'm just going to use whip stitch. I'm going to go through the inner fabric of the basket, through the edge of the inside of the fabric, into the tip of that handle. Do that a couple of times. This is a toy, I would then knot it. If it's not a toy, I can then just take that end and go down a little bit. It is probably best to bury your end underneath the handle of the basket. So that would look, and that would look like this. I'm going to go in and I'm just going to skim the surface of the handle here, splitting the plies so that it's going through the yarn but not going to be visible on the other side. Then we're just going to attach this handle over on this side here. Obviously it's a little trickier once we're working with one end already attached. So use your best judgment and just attach it down in a couple places. Unless it's a toy, in which case make sure you're doing lots of very secure attaching and knotting. Fun story, I worked really hard to make maybe little mushrooms to have in his basket, and there were two problems with that. Number one, I wasn't sure if he was then gathering mushrooms or gnomes that grow like mushrooms, in which case were they babies? So that was like an unanswered question, but that never really became the dominant problem because every tiny, tiny mushroom that I developed ended up looking like a turkey drumstick. And it made me laugh so much. So if someday we have a gnome with a turkey drumstick, just know that at one point those were destined as possible things for the professor to be collecting in his basket. I know my testers have already had a lot of fun with deciding what they're going to put in their baskets. One arm is going to have an end that is not woven in here by the wrist area. And what we're going to do is we're going to place the basket so that it's just above where that color transition happens, so that it's mostly on whatever your body color is. And that way more of the hand is picking through. If we do too close, it ends up looking a little funny. So if we do it above that color transition, and then we're going to use this yarn to sew it to the basket to the arm. So you have to decide, do you want your professor to be holding it like this or like this? That's the choice you're going to have to make. It's easiest to do arm to gnome and then basket to arm. So like I said, we're going to do, at least I am going to do a full stitch away. This beard's pretty narrow. get that curving the way I want. I'm going to go through the top of the I-cord under that same V-stitch. Do that a couple times in this direction. And with the gills of his cap spread out so much, the professor does fight this a little bit. So just take your time and be comfortable, and remember to relax your shoulders. So now I'm going to go through, I go through the top of the I-cord, and I'm just going to go in the opposite direction here. Again, this will be visible, so make sure that you like the way your stitching looks. If you want to tie a knot, make sure that you bring your yarn underneath and sort of into the armpit area, because then it's much easier to hide under the armpit. And if you don't want to tie a knot, you can just continue to plunge your yarn through your stuffing, come out somewhere. You can also plunge it up through your arm. The arm will be more stable the more stuffing it has, as it were, and every end is stuffing. You can also insert something like florist wire up through the center of the I-cord, and that will give you a bit more posability if you're looking for that. I'm going to do the other arm before I do the basket. Let's do our feet, and we'll leave the basket to the end. I've got my 2 feet here, and I haven't stuffed them yet. All I want to do is stuff the area where it starts to grow. So if you think about it almost like a kid's tree with a thick trunk down here, and then the puffy part of the tree, we want to avoid stuffing the trunk. So with these rounds that we just knit flat, we don't want to stuff them. So we just need a wee bit of stuffing to puff these up a bit. If they are too puffy, they will make it more likely that your gnome will tip, just because the puffiness will push on the body and push it and tip it backwards. So that's looking plump. It's always good to check that they are about the same size. And they are, so that's great. And now we will use whip stitch and sew them inside the purl ridge here. So where you place the feet will obviously change the personality a fair bit. If I do it like this, it's going to be a very different look than if it's like this and even like that. So what I've decided I'm going to do is I'm going to line the center of the foot is just outside or at the center of the arm above it. Kind of like that. And then it would be like about that. And that seemed to give a lot of personality and just adorableness in terms of placement. So that's what I'm going with. So again, if you think about drawing a line from here down, that's where I want the center of my foot to be. Now you can also choose whether you're placing your feet like this or more forwards. Even placing it over here, you can still place it forwards, right? So that's the angle of the foot also matters. I like to turn mine out a little bit. I think it looks a little more comfortable. And then I'm just going to use whip stitch. So I'm going to go grab a little bit of the body. I'm going to use whip stitch. So I'm going to grab a little bit of the body here and go through both layers of the foot. And that's going to pull that forward a little bit. Body, both layers of the foot. And we will just work our way across here. So I'm not going to deal with this end. I'm going to leave this as is, and I'm going to wait till I'm done the other one. Position really is personality, and before I knot things or make the ends disappear forever, I like to double check that I actually like where I've put things. All right, so like this, he looks pretty good, but now I'm going to tip him up and face me because I am not the camera. Yep, that's still looking really cute. Really liking that placement. So I will knot those and deal with the ends on the feet. And now our final bit of business is the basket. So the way that my arm is attached, the yarn is actually coming off under the wrist. And I've just realized I've left the wrong color of yarn. So I'm going to bury this end and grab some of my body color. The white is really a harsh contrast with the yarns and on the basket, and then it will show too much, which is why the instructions don't tell you to leave this color visible. They tell you, okay, so as written, the yarn is coming in the right color, and I'm going to bring my yarn through to the top of my wrist. So I'm just going to go through the I-cord. And I'm going to shorten my end. I attached far too much yarn for this. Bring my arm through my basket here. And like I mentioned earlier, I want the handle to be just above the transition to the sort of the skin here. If you've ever wondered why my gnomes are all white, it's partly because then they all match each other, and partly because for me, gnomes are snow creatures. I started knitting them at a time when I was really struggling to deal with seasonal affective disorder, and I would bring the gnomes out the beginning of the first snowstorm of the year, and then I would leave them out until the last snow had melted in the yard. So that's roughly where I live, October, early November through till mid-April or later. And so for me, they were very much snow creatures, and that's why they use the white coloring. All right, so I'm going to go up straight through the handle, and this brown is close enough to the brown in the basket, and with the double thickness and everything, we're going to be not making wide stitches. We're just going to go, and we'll go right down beside where we came up and just make a very, very small stitch, but it will nevertheless be securing it. And then we'll do that a couple times. You can go over a little to the side, and then you'll need to make a decision about whether you want to sew your basket to your body as well. Before we get rid of this end, it's a good time to ask yourself, do I want to sew things together? So you could use your arm colored yarn and sew your arm at about the forearm and the elbow to your body. That's one choice. You can also grab some of the yarns from your basket and sew about here to wherever you want it to be. Just keep it sort of lower and out of the way. One way you could do it is to figure out where you want it, what height and roughly where, and that's a big question because that's a lot of personality, right? But once you know where you want it, if you went through the body at about the center of the basket with this, you could then use each end, take it through the basket and tie them on the inside, and that would be just a real quick way to do that. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time fussing around with what I want to do, and I hope that this video has helped you. The professor is a gnome that I am extremely proud of, and I hope to see all sorts of marvelous toadstools. Those of you doing yellow capped and purple capped and blue capped and fluorescent gnomes, I'm really excited to see how this worked out. Seeing the gnomes coming in from my test knitters on this one was so exciting. So I can't wait to see your professors and to hear all the little stories you tell. Don't forget to enter in the Year of Gnomes if you are interested. That is a monthly finished gnome drawing that we're doing prizes for. And then don't forget to enter in the Mystery Gnome Knit Along as well, because the prizes for that are also wonderful. And for the Mystery Gnome Knit Along, if you tell a little story or take a silly little photo, the gift that I give out for my prize is not random. I choose the one that's made me smile or brought a tear to my eye or whatever the case may be. So have fun with a story or a photo in the Mystery Gnome thread. All right, so I've knit my little 8-round bit of I-cord here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold them together so that the ends come together. And I'm going to knot them. I'm going to kind of pinch it down. I'll knot them, and then I will use one of them to sew it together. I'm going to just stitch across a little bit, securing the two ends together. And then I'm going to bury that end up through the I-cord. And I'm going to use the other end to sew it on. All right, so it's supposed to go at the center because that's where we would be knitting our 5 stitches at the end. So I will gently and slightly awkwardly whip stitch this on. To the center. All right, now I'm gonna, this is the front, and so I want this to look the best, so I'm actually gonna bring the yarn down and across here to the back. Make sure I like the way it is here. And then I'm going to do the final stitching together here. There we go. That looks better. That's what he's supposed to look like. I can't believe I did that. Anyways, I'm going to bury this up here. If it was a toy, I'd have to knot it. But my gnomes are not toys. They are prized collections in their gnome cabinets, safe from the predator cat that lives with me. All right, so there we go. That's Professor looking professorly. If you have any spare glasses from the Nana gnome where we ordered the little wire glasses, they are a very adorable addition to Professor, if you've got those as well. So there we are, a finished gnome as written in the pattern, nice and official. I really enjoyed this one, and I'm really looking forward to the next one in October.